fine me or do something like that. But why should I have freedom taken away?
Well, but this is, in a sense, what you've just said is a symptom of the modern world we live in. Look how our freedoms were taken away during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean, not even in wartime did government restrict what we do to that degree. And now we're hearing that maybe we'll have national ID cards. I mean, I think Tony Blair wants to microchip us.
Yeah,
you know?
I do.
But it'll be for our own good. It'll make us all safer. Life will be better. And I just don't trust big government. I think you and I are very similar on that. We kind of...
What do you say to the person who says, if you've done nothing wrong, you've got nothing to fear?
Yeah, and that's the classic argument that is turned out time and time again. But having a certain opinion, you can think is nothing wrong until it becomes,
Then you discuss it.
So, say you decided not to have the vaccine, and because of the vaccine passport hell we lived in for a couple of years, you were basically excluded from travelling, from living normally. The fact you didn't take the vaccine didn't mean you'd done anything wrong, yet you were still being discriminated against. So I don't buy any of these arguments. And we've always been very trusting in Britain of our governments.
I'm very concerned that people get in control, people who have a number 2 priority on their mind. And when they want to be in control, they actually mean they want to be telling you what you can and cannot do.
People like Matt Hancock. Do you remember that? He's on the telly. I'm telling you to stay at home, this is an order. If I could have had a brick, I'd have chucked in at my telly. Some little pipsqueak telling me I couldn't leave the house for more than an hour a day.
I mean, we've got problems now with new measles.
Yep.
So how do you get round in a discussion talking to a mum and dad about little Johnny? He's ill, but if he gets measles anymore, he could be dead.
A lot of trust in vaccines has been lost. I grew up having vaccines.
We all had it done at school.
BCG, it meant you couldn't get tuberculosis ever, you know. A lot of diseases like polio basically eradicated. But then, when the mRNA vaccine came along, I read a few doubting voices on the internet. I thought, no, I'm perfectly happy with this. I've grown up with vaccines. I went and had the first 2. By the time it came to the booster, and by this time, James, they were texting me, emailing me, calling me, you haven't had your booster yet. And I started to ask questions. But surely if I've had the vaccination, that means I don't need to do it again. And they basically lied to us. Do you remember the advert?
Yeah.
Could you look into his eyes? Meaning, if you haven't had the vaccine and you meet your elderly uncle, you're going to kill him. I mean, that's effectively what they were saying. And then we learned sometime on, they knew all along, that having the jab did not stop you from passing on COVID, did not stop you from catching COVID again. So there were so many lies told during that period of time that it's damaged our confidence in vaccines in general, which I think is part of why the measles problem has come back. And the other problem is cultural. London is where the problem is.
If you look at different places in London where they're against vaccine for cultural reasons, these things are going up and up and up.
Oh, Dartford, just down the road here, has got a yellow fever clinic.
Yeah.
You know.
Yellow fever.
Yeah. I've only once been kicked off Twitter, as it was. Only once. And that was when I put out a tweet to say that the Western Docks in Dover had basically been evacuated that morning because coming across on the dinghies were some people very sick with COVID. And I was kicked off Twitter. I had to apologise to get back on it because to attribute a disease with a certain grouping of people was considered, as you say, racist extreme. Well, I can sit here today and tell you that as we speak, diphtheria is spreading in the camps of Calais.
Yeah.
All right? A disease that we eradicated back in Edwardian England is spreading through the camps of Calais. And I think things are changing. I think they call it the Overton window. I think what we're allowed to debate is now becoming much more mainstream, much more real, because I think what we know is that this country has been the most open-minded, the most accepting, in fact the most compassionate over centuries when it comes to those around the world in terrible peril. The difference now, and I do think Blairism's got a lot to do with this, through what was called multiculturalism, we actually encourage groups to stay separate, to stay different, rather than joining in. And now we've got groups of people, James, large groups of people in London, who literally hate our way of life.
I don't have very much time left. And it's not a time when most people would really want to make an interview or talk about it.
Yeah, but you're James Whale.
But yeah, I must do something different. But I'm talking from this perspective of why on earth we don't do something to show the people who want to come here and who come here. And why do they want to come here? Because this is the best country in the world.
Well, yes, and...
It was.
And we're a soft touch. We're a soft touch. We're a soft touch. I mean, what sane country says that you can access the benefit system as quickly as you can in this country? You know, you can't have freedom of movement of people at any level, or open borders at any level, all the while you've got a social security system.
Yeah.
And we're now learning the truth that, of course, net migration is making us poorer. All the old arguments about everybody comes here to work, it's all nonsense. Most people who have come here in the last 10 years aren't working. And I think the public are waking up to that, and that's probably why reform has done well. Firstly, because we cheesed off with the two parties. They both look a bit like, you know, each other and failures. And secondly, because I've been saying this kind of stuff for a very, very long time, in the face of a lot of hostility, in the face of a lot of abuse, and people are beginning to say, do you know what, this bloke's right. He's actually called this stuff out, you know, and been saying it for a long time and been consistent. And people want a real change.
How long before they get it?
I am not convinced, despite the massive majority. I am not convinced this government goes the full term. I think the economic problems that are building up are akin to the late 1970s. I think the debt burden just gets bigger and bigger. We're basically going into recession.
And do you know who's going to get the blame?
Who's that? Not me. Not again. I can't blame you for everything.
This is what annoys me. I hear such rubbish spoken on the radio and the TV.
Yeah.
You know, we've established the fact, I've known you a long time.
Yeah.
If you didn't want this country to succeed, you'd in America,
Of course.
living in a wonderful...
Of course.
So would I.
The people that are supporting me, this is not a protest. This is not a two fingers up.
And you don't want that.
I don't want that. This is actually, and the events I do, when I travel around, people say, you're going to do this. You're going to turn this country around. There's a wave of optimism that we actually can do this. Collective will, we can do this. I mean, I know they're going to make it very hard for me. You know, I know they're going to throw everything. I've watched what they tried to do to Trump in America, etc. I know this will be tough. You and I are very similar in this regard. We say to people, take us as we are. If you like us, that's fantastic. If you don't, we couldn't care bloody less. You know, we're very similar in that regard. So I'm not going to be scrolling through the comments, you know, on Mail Online to see whether people like me or not. I'll just go on doing what I think is right.
I don't want to identify where I am, because then I might have to have 8 burly security guards like you have sitting outside. But do you really have to have them?
I think the threats are very real, yeah. And I think, oh yes. I mean, I've had, despite having people with me, I've had milkshakes thrown at my face, pints of beer poured over my head, cement chucked at me, been hit over the head with banners. Oh yeah. I think the big danger is if it's pre-advertised where you're going. So, you know, Nigel will be in Maidstone Town Centre at midday on Saturday. You've got a real problem. if Nigel just turns up at midday in Maidstone, it'll probably be okay.
Yeah.
Until someone gets their mobile phone out and tweets where you are. And, you know, the hate mob is very real. And I kind of, you're seeing it with, take Palestine Action, take that particular group. They think using violence is perfectly acceptable. Those of us that believe in democracy think we have our debates and we'll sort it out with a pencil and a piece of paper come election time. So I think there's a growing number of people on the sort of loony left who think violence is totally acceptable. So I'm afraid the answer, sadly, is yes.
You know, it's a bit of a worry when you can't have a debate, talk about it. You can do it tongue-in-cheek like I do a lot of the time, have a bit of a laugh. But once people take it so seriously, they want to hit you.
But it's also a lack of respect for democratic values.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, when you think about it, and this is extraordinary, Enoch Powell in the 70s travelled on the London Underground on his own. He was the most controversial political figure of the day. But kind of that post-war period, we did respect the right of other people who had different views. And we might argue like crazy with them. But kind of, I think a generation that had lived through one or two wars understood that freedom of debate was what they'd actually fought for.
And you know, that's the problem. Not many generations have lived through many wars now.
Possibly true.
Do we need a war?
Well, let's hope we don't. I tell you what, I've got a better option than war, right? Let's get an education system that actually teaches kids critical thinking. An education system that says to them, look, here are two sides to an argument, right? You're big enough and ugly enough to decide which of these you think is the valid argument, but they're both valid. Instead of an education system that says, here are two approaches to a problem, one is virtuous and good, and if you support the other one, you're probably evil and maybe a neo-Nazi as well. And that's how poisonous our education system has become. And if you bring people up to think like that, no wonder they think, in some cases, that violence is actually acceptable.
Thanks, Nigel.
James, you're a complete star.
I hope I've got more than a few weeks, but
well, so do I.
That's really made me...
So do I. And you never know, miracles do happen.
They do. They do
happen. Well, your career's been a miracle.
Yeah. Well, it has, considering I had no A-levels, O-levels, CSEs, or even a letter after my name for broadcasting.
You said to me the other day, you've never really had a job.
I haven't.